Welcome to Tamer Bowling Video Ball Reviews.
We need your support, so if you like what we do, please support us by joining our Patreon page.
I'm excited to announce our new partnership with Pure Bowling. Visit our partner pureitbowling.com and use the special code TAMER when making a purchase to be entered into a monthly drawing.
Today we're testing the new Storm Crux Prime. We're testing on a 40-foot medium house shot and a 45-foot PBA Dick Weber pattern. First impressions, the Crux Prime is a heavy forward rolling piece we're used to seeing in the Rotogrip lineup. We're gonna like this one. This may be the worthy successor to the Alpha Crux. For value, we gave it a B+. Despite being a top-line strong solid ASIM, this ball feels like it'll be pretty usable for many bowlers on a lot of conditions, earning it decent marks. Overall, we gave the Crux Prime a B+ on house, B+ on sport. Storm brings back the Crux line that used a very reliable catalyst core. It really was a pretty forgiving and heavy rolling core shape. With the Crux Prime, Storm is also releasing a cover they called SPEC, or Storm Performance Enhanced Cover Stock. In short, Storm claims it'll hold up longer. Time will tell, and we'll likely have to perform a longevity test. For now, I can somewhat understand why this might be the case. Firstly, the Crux Prime is not the strongest ball out there, and I don't think it's intended to be. The strongest snow tires have no chance to hold up the way Storm claims. The cover strength is matched to provide just enough strength to allow the bowler to see the benefits of the heavy rolling core, meaning it's not so strong that you have to significantly open up your angles and put it into heavier oil. When you do that, the ball tends to drain more energy going side to side. Instead, you get a good balance of grit while still having great punch and continuation. Strong solid ASIMs sometimes struggle to have this balance on all but the heavier shots, not the case with the Crux Prime. Personally, I had a great look with this ball in the house shot. For those who watched the live stream, shot after shot went through the pins with no doubt. Just excellent amounts of energy retention for guaranteed strikes pretty much. And this ball gave me the ability to open up the angles a bit, but what was more telling for me is the carry when my break point was in. Remember, house shots tend to be flooded inside about 10 to 10, but this ball crushed the pocket on those shots, and this lights up my eyes when I can have that type of forgiveness. House shots need blend left to right because of the cliff, and the Crux Prime did that for me extremely well. This is all about mid-lane control. Comparing to the Physix is a bit longer and a bit more angular. The Physix core has a bit more defined ASIM turnover, and the hybrid nano cover tend to complement that with good length. I had to make a small move right to give it a bit more room. Sean was next with the Crux Prime, and he had a pretty good look with it. Generally doesn't use solid ASIMs on anything, let alone house shots. However, the Crux Prime wasn't difficult to use for him. Again, because it doesn't display that max snow tire like reaction, he doesn't have to get very deep. Near the fourth arrow was fine, and the ball displayed that same mid-lane control and heavy roll through the pins once it turns over. It just plows through and didn't deflect much. It's the same I saw, and more on that actually when Bryan comes up. Missing in wasn't the best idea, as it is not likely to hold for Sean. He did try using lower axis rotation just to see what it looks like, as he occasionally does that to control side-to-side motion, but the Prime stood up too hard and he couldn't really get settled with that. With the Physix on the same line, it went longer and deflected through the pins. He made a small 1 and 0 move to just move the break point in a touch, and then he was seeing the strong motion from the Physix. On to Bryan, and he was lined up straight away. Bryan is not a stranger to strong, solid, or hybrid ASIMs, as he benefits from the mid-lane control and more defined angularity of the ASIMs. Everyone can strike on flush shots, but the telling sign was how the ball plowed through the pins with the half-pocket hits. And that happened enough times for Bryan to feel very confident throwing the Crux Prime on this house pattern. He was set up just inside the friction line, bouncing it off of it, and the Crux Prime made that hard, aggressive move off of it early enough, but still retaining energy. He made incremental moves in and kept striking. It really felt like he had a wide pocket. Remember that Bryan is a huge fan of the lock and had 2 of them in fact. He also has a shore lock for the heaviest conditions, and this gave him, I would say, similar shape to his lock, something that he had a reliable move down lane. Comparing to the Physix, oddly enough, the Physix never really created that aggressive turn the rest of us saw from it for Bryan. It just didn't seem to match up for him, and it shows. So it gets more length, but not really more pop compared to the Crux Prime. When comparing to the Surelock, clearly the Surelock will handle more oil, but on the house shot the difference is more subtle, and because it's stronger it doesn't quite retain energy as well as the Crux Prime, and is smoother down lane in shape. For the spark shot, we're testing on the 45-foot Dick Weber pattern, and I like to play this shot near 5-6 straight up or a very small belly until it opens up. And I had a reasonable look. From there, I did want the ball to dig in just a bit more fronts and mids. This would be a ball I would use when what I would say the edge has been taken off of the fresh pattern. I tried a couple different looks from just inside the second arrow as well as the fourth arrow. The ball's pretty versatile, but again, I would want a touch stronger shape on fresh. For Sean, it's actually the bit of the opposite. He doesn't need this much ball on this pattern, so he had definitive hook and had to be careful. He had to move in and give it enough room through the heads without missing the break point out on this 45-foot pattern. He left 9 pin and a couple of high 410 crumblers. It shapes very nicely for him, but he can use a pearl symmetric on this pattern, so this much ball is just not needed. Finally, Bryan, he does benefit from an aggressive solid asim, as we mentioned previously. He had a decent look, but also had to take care not to open up the fronts too much, as it would not quite make it back. If he was too far in, it was a little soft, so he had to be just right. Final thoughts. I think the Crux Prime will be a very popular piece, partly because of its provenance, partly on its own merits. This is a heavier rolling piece we had been accustomed to seeing in the roto grip line, but hey, it's the same family, and even at 2000 grit, we didn't feel like we had to try hard to get it down lane. It didn't hook at our feet, but gave nice, smooth, and arcing mid lane and back end control. The ball carried so well on half pocket shots, and that was awesome to see. As usual, heavy-handed bowlers will want to also have some speed, as this ball will hook up hard if you're rev dominant. I think rev dominant bowlers will still see a great shape out of the Crux Prime. We gave this ball the benefit of the doubt on sport as well, given how nicely this Catalyst core rolls. All in all, a good offering and a nice complement that will fill a small hole in the premier line for Storm. Stay tuned for a future review on the cover longevity.
I need to tell you what Tamer Elbaga reviews.